Hi, my name is Caitlin Rickard, and I'm going to be discussing the development and importance of Imari porcelain. Imari ware finds its beginnings in Chinese porcelain. Blue and white porcelain dominated from the years 1271 to 1368. The Chinese were able to create porcelain that was so exquisite due to the local raw materials that it couldn't be found elsewhere. Their quality of porcelain was unattainable, and so there was a special market for it. A type of porcelain enamel ware that was developed in 1368 and was popular until 1619 was wutsai. This is characterized by the 5 colors that it utilizes, such as red and green, but this type of ceramic was not limited to just 5 colors. An important development for Japanese ceramics was the Imjin War, also known as the Pottery War. During this time, Korean potters were kidnapped and brought to Kyushu, which was the gateway between Japan, Korea, and China. They brought with them their techniques and style of art and integrated it into Japanese pottery. In 1619, Izumiyama porcelain stone was discovered in the area of ARTH, which allowed for Korean potters to build a kiln and start firing porcelain that was of similar quality to the Chinese porcelain. This pottery, Hisenware, named for the place it was fired in, was then sent to Imari port, where it was then sent to bigger ports, thus dubbing the ceramics Imariware. The Japanese held Chinese objects in high regard and saw them as concrete signs of civilized life. The Chinese culture was reproduced mainly at the ARTH kilns. Once Japan severed its contact with China, Japanese high culture was able to develop. I've included a map to show the geography of where the ceramics were made to give context of how close it was to the mainland Asian countries and how easy it was for their cultures and art to commingle. The spread of Imari ware into Europe is really what cemented Japanese art abroad. Prior to 1709, there was no high-fire porcelain being made in Europe, so they relied on trade with China and Japan. A dynasty change in China caused their porcelain producers to struggle due to a ban on sea trade. Japan filled in the void with their porcelain that was now of similar quality. During the 17th and 18th centuries, Imari ware was becoming more popular with the aristocracy. It became an important part of European royal collections. ARTH craftsmen made pottery specifically for European markets by making items such as large dishes, lidded bowls, and even beer jugs. This pottery enlivened the lives of Europeans with its bright colors and designs. When Chinese porcelain makers returned to the market, Imari ware was so popular that European merchants wanted them to reproduce it. China was able to price Japan out of the market by 1740, and the Japanese wouldn't make a comeback until the 1770s. This expansion of Japanese art into Europe is important to note because it highlights just how malleable the designs and function of Japanese porcelain was by integrating various cultures as well as their own into their craft. The piece I am presenting as an example of Imari porcelain is Dish in the Shape of a Princess. It is porcelain with underglazed blue and overglazed enamels. There is no artist listed, and it was made between 1690s and the 1700s. It is a dish made in the shape of a Heian princess, which would have been recognizable to the Japanese, as the Heian period was considered as high Japanese culture. The description of the plate from the Met Museum offers some insight into the purpose of this plate. Due to the irregular shape, it is thought to be a commission for a local buyer. It was produced at the ARTH kilns, which were known for their foreign exports. However, the market was slowing down and turning domestic. These types of plates were usually auspicious gifts for children at holidays, and who better to depict than a Heian noblewoman? Turning to the physical appearance of the dish, we can see that there are a few colors that are important to note, such as the red and green in the upper right-hand corner. This, along with the pattern displayed, is reminiscent of the wutsai jar I showed earlier. The type of kimono she is wearing, Juni Itoe, is characteristic of what Heian women would wear. The way she is positioned brings movement into this 2D depiction of a woman. The lines that have been painted and where the patterns begin and end serve to show the dimensionality of the kimono as well as the many layers that are characteristic of the Juni Itoe. The colors, patterns, and flowers depicted surely have meaning behind them, but my research wasn't able to locate enough information about this. This painting by Sagu no Nyogo Yoshiko bears striking resemblance to the dish I just presented. This was created during the Heian period and depicts a poetess. The kimono and her body position are both very similar to the dish, which further associates the dish with the Heian period. Here we can see them side by side. Although there are differences, there are enough similarities for the dish to be recognizable in depicting a Japanese cultural symbol. This plate gives us insight into what was culturally valued at the time it was made. Comparing this dish with what was made for foreign markets highlights just how adaptable and talented porcelain makers were. They were able to produce art for foreign and domestic buyers and heavily influence the market tastes. Thank you very much for watching my presentation on Imari porcelain.